Silence is not the end of sound. It is the beginning of inner listening. As the world slows down outside, you begin to approach something more subtle, something that does not shout, but whispers. Silence is not a void. It is a delicate, almost invisible presence that only reveals itself when you allow it to. This is not just a time to rest your body, but to loosen the knots of your mind. Over the next few hours, you will be guided not by constant words, but by the spaces in between. Spaces where thought slows, where anxiety dissolves, where sleep finally finds its way. Now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and allow the silence to speak. There comes a moment each night when the world outside begins to exhale. The last car passes. The final door closes. The televisions fade into murmur. And slowly, the orchestra of daily life, so relentless in its rhythm, begins to dissolve into a strange and unfamiliar quiet. But this silence is not immediate. It arrives gradually like a fog. First you notice the absence of traffic, then the fading buzz of distant voices. The refrigerator hum remains. The occasional creak of the house persists. Silence, as it turns out, is rarely total. It's layered, textured, and above all, paradoxical. Because what we often call silence is never truly the absence of sound. It is the presence of space between sounds. And in this space, something remarkable happens. We begin to hear differently, not just with the ears, but with something deeper, something closer to awareness than perception. In modern life, outer silence is a rare commodity. We are surrounded by constant stimulation, music in our pockets, notifications on our wrists, endless chatter in our minds. Noise has become the wallpaper of consciousness, and in this relentless noise, we forget what it's like to be alone with the air, alone with the night, alone with nothing. Philosophers from the ancient Stoics to contemporary thinkers like Byung-Chul Han have warned us about the price of constant activity. The world, they say, has become allergic to stillness. The machine demands motion. The system fears pause, but nature does not. Nature rests. It moves in cycles of blooming and fading, sound and silence, and so must we. The paradox of outer silence is this: we long for peace, but we often resist the very stillness that offers it. Silence feels uncomfortable not because it's empty, but because it is full of what we've been avoiding, full of echoes, full of questions that have no answers, and perhaps most unsettling of all, full of ourselves. When the noise stops, we meet ourselves again. Not the self we project in conversations, nor the self we polish for others. The raw, unfiltered self, the one that doesn't speak, but listens, the one that isn't performing, but simply is. In the first stage of sleep, this is where we begin. In the outer world's fading voice, the dimming lights, the receding distractions. This is the descent, the invitation. You are no longer required to act, no longer required to think. You are allowed, perhaps for the first time today, to simply notice. Notice the breath. Notice the weight of the body against the bed. Notice the soundscape that remains, the quiet hums, the distant winds, the soft pulse of your own heartbeat. These sounds are not intrusions. They are reminders. You are alive. You are here. You are arriving into silence. Philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein once said, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent." But what he didn't say is that silence itself speaks, just not in the language of words. It speaks in sensations, in rhythms, in presence. As the outside world dims, don't chase silence. Don't force it. Let it arrive naturally, like the night. Let it gather around you, fill the room like invisible water. Let it wash away the static of the day, the opinions, the worries, the unfinished conversations. This is the first threshold, and all you have to do is cross it. Gently, close your eyes. The world outside is retreating, not because it is ending, but because it is finally giving you space to begin. The world has grown quiet, but now, in this newfound silence, another noise begins to rise, one that is less audible and more intimate. The noise of the body, a twitch of the leg, the slow expansion of the lungs, the subtle shift of the spine against the mattress. We often imagine the body as passive at rest, but it has its own language, and in silence, it speaks. At first, it's all sensation: the weight of your arms, the pulse in your neck, the slight tightness behind the eyes. These signals have always been there, hidden beneath the noise of daily movement. Now, without distraction, they surface. It's as if the body is asking for attention, not with urgency, but with presence. There is a paradox here, subtle but profound. The more we try to quiet the body, the more aware we become of it. Effort, even in relaxation, generates tension. Trying to sleep is a kind of contradiction, because sleep is not something you achieve, it's something you allow. And to allow, you must first listen. In psychology, we know that bodily awareness is central to emotional regulation. Somatic therapists, those who work with trauma through the body, often speak of softening into sensation. Not fighting what you feel, but observing it. Not fixing, just noticing. This is not passivity, but attentiveness. A type of conscious surrender. The philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty described the body not as an object we possess, but as the very condition of experience. I am not in front of my body, he said. I am in it, or rather, I am it. And so, in the stillness of this moment, you are not lying next to your body. You are returning to it, re-inhabiting the house you've lived in all along. At night, when our tasks are over, the body reveals its true nature. It is not a tool. It is not a machine. It is a field of sensation, fluid, dynamic, responsive. Every breath is a message, every heartbeat, a quiet percussion of life. And when we stop trying to control it, the body starts to speak in rhythms older than language. Think of ancient rituals, of meditations that begin not with the mind, but with posture, breath, and presence. The body leads the way, not by force, but by invitation. You lie down, and slowly, gravity takes over. Muscles that held tension begin to release. The jaw relaxes. The tongue rests against the bottom of the mouth. The shoulders drop, finally free of the weight they've carried all day. This is not an escape. It's a return, a descent into the lower frequencies of being, a transition from intention to sensation. And in this descent, we encounter another paradox, that true rest often begins with total awareness. Not the awareness of thought, but of feeling. Pure, immediate, unjudged. If the outer silence was the curtain falling, then this is the stage behind it. This is the moment when the show ends and the actors remove their masks. The body, no longer required to perform, begins to settle into its original rhythm. The parasympathetic nervous system, the body's built-in calm, takes over. Heart rate slows. Blood pressure drops. The breath deepens. This is biology, yes, but also poetry. We carry so much in our bodies, old fears, habitual tensions, unconscious armor, and often we fall asleep not by resolving these tensions, but by letting them be, by making space for them, by saying, yes, I feel you, and I'm not fighting. To listen to the body in silence is not to control it, but to befriend it. To say, I see you, I hear you, you can rest now. And so, as you lie here, feel your limbs become heavier, feel your breath become slower. Don't try to sleep. Sleep is not a task. It is a trust. The body knows the way. It always has. Let the silence of the body take you deeper, not away from yourself, but toward a version of you that has always been here, beneath the noise, beneath the doing, quiet, alive, waiting. You do not need to make anything happen. You only need to stay and let it happen to you. By now the world has gone quiet. The body has softened. You are still. But in the stillness, another presence lingers, one that doesn't rest as easily. The mind. Even when we close our eyes, even when our limbs grow heavy, the mind continues. Thoughts arise, not in rows, but in spirals. A conversation you replay, a to-do list that clings to the edge of sleep, a sudden memory from years ago, uninvited and vivid. The silence of the body, it seems, only amplifies the noise of the mind. Here lies one of the most delicate paradoxes of rest. The more we try to stop thinking, the more thoughts insist on coming. The more we chase silence, the louder the noise within. It's as if the act of trying is itself the engine of thought. This is not a flaw in you. This is how the mind works. Philosophers like Alan Watts spoke of this as the backwards law, the idea that the more we strive for stillness, the more agitation we create. Peace, like sleep, cannot be hunted. It comes when we stop running after it. It arrives when we become willing to stay where we are, even in the discomfort of our own mind. In cognitive psychology, this phenomenon is well known. It's called the ironic process. When you tell your brain not to think of something, say a white bear, it immediately does. Suppression leads to rebound. Effort intensifies awareness. So, what can be done? Nothing. And that's the hard part. Rather than resist the thoughts, let them pass. Rather than analyze them, let them move like clouds. You are not the thoughts. You are the sky beneath them. And the sky does not argue with the clouds. It allows. When a thought arises, notice it. Label it gently. Planning, worrying, remembering. Then let it go. Don't push it away. Just turn toward the breath, toward the feeling of the sheets, the air on your skin. These are anchors. They do not resist the mind, but gently recenter it. And here's something remarkable. When we stop trying to silence the mind, it begins to quiet itself. Thought slows, not because we force it, but because we've made room for it to unwind. It's like watching a spinning top wobble to a stop, not by grabbing it, but by waiting. In this space, another silence begins to reveal itself. Not the silence of absence, but of presence. The mind is not empty. It is open, spacious, capable of holding thoughts without becoming trapped by them, like a lake holding reflections without becoming what it reflects. The philosopher Krishnamurti once asked, "Can you look at your thought without judgment?" That question may be the door to inner peace, because most suffering does not come from thinking itself, but from our resistance to it, our belief that we shouldn't be thinking, that sleep requires perfect quiet. But the truth is, the mind can think, and you can still rest. You don't need to banish all thoughts. You only need to soften your grip on them, to allow them to pass through without building a home. Let the thought arise, let it unfold, and then let it dissolve, like a wave that rises and returns to the ocean. In this moment, you are not a thinker, you are a witness, and witnessing requires no effort, no control, no solution. It asks only that you remain open, without urgency, present, without judgment. Yes, thoughts may return. That's okay. Each one is an invitation to let go again, to return again. This is not failure. This is the practice. Eventually, the thoughts grow tired. They lose their urgency. They stretch out like shadows at sunset. And in that fading, sleep finds its entrance. The silence of thought is not the absence of thinking. It is the absence of grasping. You are not your thoughts. You are the space in which they arise and into which they fall. Rest in that space. It has been here all along. Even when the world has fallen silent, the body relaxed, and the thoughts have begun to drift like clouds, something deeper remains. Beneath the words, beneath the breath, there are feelings, emotions, quiet but persistent, sometimes faint, sometimes sharp. They move slowly, like currents under still water. At night, emotions become more visible, not because they grow, but because the distractions shrink. During the day, we keep ourselves busy. We scroll, we talk, we plan. But here, in this silent hour, there is nowhere else to go. No one to perform for. No role to inhabit. The feelings we postponed begin to knock gently at the door. And here's the paradox. We seek silence to rest, yet that very silence reveals what we've been holding. The grief we never named, the joy we never fully allowed, the anxiety hiding beneath routine. Emotions, when unacknowledged, don't disappear. They wait, and in the quiet, they return, not to haunt, but to be held. In psychology, this is known as emotional residue, the subtle leftovers of the day that haven't been processed. They linger in the nervous system, in the breath, in the posture, and sleep doesn't come easily when these echoes are loud. But here's the truth. Emotions don't need to be solved to quiet down. They need to be felt. To be with emotion does not mean to analyze or fix it. It means to notice it, without running, without rushing, without resistance. If you feel a tightness in your chest, let it be. If you sense a sadness behind your eyes, stay with it. You don't need a reason. You don't need a story. The body knows more than language can say. Carl Jung once wrote, "What you resist not only persists, but grows." Resistance is fuel. Acceptance is release. Feelings are not obstacles to sleep. They are part of the passage. They are part of you. Many ancient traditions, from Buddhism to Stoicism, speak of this inner witnessing, not detachment in the cold sense, but a loving awareness. Imagine emotion as a visitor, not one to entertain forever, but one to welcome briefly. You can say, "I see you." You may stay for a while, and when you're ready, you may go. This is the silence of emotion, not the absence of feeling, but the absence of judgment. We often label emotions as positive or negative, useful or dangerous. But what if they're just signals? What if sadness is simply a sign of care and fear a call for safety? When we stop labeling, we start listening. And when we listen, emotion softens, like a child who only wanted to be seen. Tonight, you may feel waves rise. Let them. You may feel nothing at all. Let that be too. Stillness is not emptiness. It is presence without pressure. There is no right way to feel. There is only honesty. And honesty, in silence, is healing. Think of the emotional landscape as weather, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy, always passing. You are not the weather. You are the sky it moves through. So lie here and breathe. Let whatever arises, arise. Let your breath cradle it. Let your awareness hold it. No resistance, no story, just sensation, just energy, just being. Sleep does not require perfection. It requires safety. And safety begins when you are willing to feel without fear. Here, in this silent space, your emotions are not enemies. They are signals of aliveness. Let them come, let them go, and let the deeper silence receive you. You do not have to understand everything tonight. You only need to allow. Even in solitude, we are not truly alone. In the stillness of night, when voices have vanished and no one is calling your name, others still linger, in memory, in emotion, in thought. The social self does not dissolve when the world grows quiet. It withdraws, slowly, like the tide, leaving behind footprints in the sand. We are social beings. We are shaped by conversation, by approval, by conflict, by care. All day, we move through subtle negotiations. Who to be, how to respond, what to conceal, what to reveal. We wear masks, not out of deceit, but out of habit. Each relationship adds a layer. Each interaction leaves an impression. And when night falls, we begin the gentle work of peeling those layers away. There is a paradox here. In silence, we are alone. And yet, we meet more fully the others who live inside us. A phrase someone said years ago. A moment of awkwardness we still carry. A face we miss. The mind replays not only events, but emotions attached to people. And often, the quietest hours are those most filled with voices we don't speak aloud. Philosopher Martin Buber distinguished between two kinds of relationships, I-it and I-thou. The former treats others as objects, tools, roles, functions. The latter sees others as sacred presences, as whole beings. In true connection, the boundaries between self and other begin to blur. And perhaps, at night, when our defenses lower, this I-thou memory returns, not through conversation, but through remembrance. Think of someone whose presence still echoes in you. Not the words they said, but how it felt to be near them. These impressions remain. We are not isolated islands. We are porous, and the people we've loved or struggled with continue to shape the inner landscape long after they've gone. This is the silence of the social, the recognition that even in stillness we are in relation, not performing, not pleasing, not avoiding, but simply coexisting with the memory of others. This is not a burden. It is a form of continuity. You carry within you the echoes of connection, but with that comes a kind of ache, the ache of what was said and what wasn't, the words we held back, the truth we almost told. Silence can be full of unsaid things, and at night, they rise like fog. Yet here lies the healing. You are not required to resolve every conversation before sleep. You are allowed to rest with unfinished stories. You are allowed to feel both love and distance, gratitude and regret. The mind may revisit others, but it does not have to hold them tightly. Let them come, let them speak, and then let them fade. Sometimes, silence is the most honest conversation we can have, with ourselves and with those we can no longer reach. In therapeutic terms, this is a kind of internal integration. The social self no longer seeks to manage or perform. It simply acknowledges. You can say, yes, that happened. Yes, I feel this. And in doing so, you begin to settle not only into your body, but into your relationships, past and present. Let go of the need to be understood right now. Let go of the desire to fix what was broken, not because it doesn't matter, but because it can rest for now. Sleep welcomes the self behind the mask, the self that is not waiting for applause, the self that does not fear rejection, the self that simply is. Tonight, you are not a role. You are not a response. You are not a reflection of someone else's opinion. You are a presence, quietly returning to itself. So as the silence deepens, feel the social ties loosen, not disappear, but relax. You are still connected. You are still held. But you do not need to perform that connection. You can just be, quietly, gently, truly. Let others fade into the background, and let yourself come forward. What is time? When you are lying still in the dark, you cannot see the hands of a clock. The numbers on the screen glow faintly, but you are not counting. And yet, part of you still feels the pull, of past and future, of what was and what must be. Time is a thread, stretched tight across the mind. Even in silence, we feel its tension. But here, in this moment, time begins to shift. It slows, it softens, it loosens its grip, and that is the paradox of sleep. It takes place in time, but to reach it, we must forget time. We must surrender our place in the story, the sequence of cause and effect, the weight of unfinished days and unknown tomorrows, and rest in the only moment that truly exists, now. Psychology tells us that our perception of time is deeply subjective. A minute can feel endless in anxiety, and hours can pass unnoticed in stillness. The mind does not measure time like a machine. It weaves it like a narrative, and when we stop narrating, time unravels. That's why before sleep, time becomes elastic. Thoughts no longer follow a strict line. Images blur. You might remember something from childhood, then suddenly return to the sound of your breath. You are moving through time, but not according to the clock. You are drifting, not forward, not backward, but inward. Philosopher Henry Bergson spoke of two kinds of time: chronos, the measured time of the clock, and durée, the lived time of experience. In sleep, we leave chronos behind. We enter durée, a time that flows, not ticks, a time that expands, contracts, disappears. In dreams, this is taken to its extreme. Minutes in waking life become hours in dream time. The sequence of events dissolves. A single moment stretches into whole stories. This is not fantasy. It's the mind freed from the constraints of logic. And in this freedom, healing happens. Sleep is not just rest. It is a return to timelessness. But to get there, we must pass through a strange threshold. The moment when we stop caring what time it is. When we let go of how long have I been trying to sleep. When we stop counting sheep or minutes or failures. When we stop trying. Because trying belongs to the world of effort. Sleep belongs to the world of release. This is the silence of time, not the absence of minutes, but the absence of urgency. You are no longer racing toward rest. You are drifting with it. No rush, no deadline, no schedule. Let time become soft in your hands. Let it slip through your fingers. Let it vanish. You are not late. You are not early. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Here, now, between seconds, between thoughts, between all the things that ask you to measure. And if your mind returns to the clock, gently notice it. Then return to the body, to the breath, to the space between breaths. There, time disappears. You are not falling behind. You are falling inward. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote, "The only journey is the one within." And this inner journey, unlike the outer world, requires no calendar, no appointments, no map. Here, there is only presence, and in presence, there is peace. Let go of time. Let it keep ticking somewhere far away. You don't need it here. There comes a point in the night, subtle and sacred, where even the thoughts grow tired. The body has surrendered. The emotions have softened. Time no longer presses. And what remains is something we rarely encounter in waking life. A silence that is not around you, but through you. A silence that doesn't arrive, but reveals. This is not the silence of soundlessness or the absence of noise. It is the silence beneath all things, the kind you don't hear with your ears, but feel with your being. It has no color, no shape, no edge, and yet it contains everything. It is both presence and absence, stillness and fullness. It is the space where you no longer need to remember who you are. It is here, in this absolute silence, that sleep truly begins, not as an act, not as a destination, but as a letting go of all that came before. You are no longer navigating thoughts, no longer observing emotions, no longer naming sensations. You are not even you in the way you know yourself during the day. The thinker dissolves. The observer rests. The inner voice dims until it is only breath. Then breath fades into rhythm, and rhythm fades into stillness. Consciousness thins, like mist lifting from a lake. This is not disappearance. It's return. Throughout history, mystics, philosophers, and poets have tried to describe this silence, this state beyond language, beyond identity. The mystic Meister Eckhart called it the stillness where God speaks. The Zen masters pointed not to explanations, but to awareness itself. And the philosopher Plotinus described the soul's journey as a return to the one, where all divisions fall away. In psychology, we call it non-dual awareness, the dissolution of subject and object. No more I looking at that, only this. A presence without separation. A rest that is not just mental or physical, but ontological. You are not asleep in the way we think of unconsciousness. You are immersed in a kind of quiet truth. The absolute silence is not an escape. It is not nothingness. It is the ground beneath everything you thought you were. It does not belong to sleep, but sleep passes through it. And the deeper you go, the less there is to carry. No expectations, no self-image, no memory of what needs to be done tomorrow, no comparison to how sleep should feel. You are simply gone, but not lost, because in this place, nothing is missing. There is nothing to fix, nothing to fear, nothing to reach. Just this. You do not need to make sense of this silence. You do not need to hold it or name it or understand it. You only need to allow it to hold you. Let your breath disappear. Let your thoughts fall like petals. Let the last layer of identity soften into air. This is not the end. It is the return to the part of you that was never separate from the silence at all. There are no more chapters after this. No more words. Just silence. Not as absence, but as essence. Sleep now.